April 7th, 1945. The sun is just starting to crack the horizon over the seas south of Japan. Below, a sliver of gray steel cuts through the waves. For the single most powerful battleship ever built by humanity, this will be its final sunrise.
What you're about to witness is a story of immense power, yes, but also of inevitable doom. It's a story about the staggering human cost of a desperate final act of war. You see, this is not just the chronicle of a sinking ship. No, this is the funeral pyre for an entire philosophy of warfare. A tale of honor and futility, written in fire and steel. This is the story of the Yamato's last ride.
So, let's set the stage. It's the grim, final days of World War II. By April 1945, the Japanese Empire is, well, it's a cornered animal. Its cities are burning, its navy is rusting at the bottom of the Pacific, and the full weight of the Allied war machine is closing in on the homeland. Deep in a Tokyo bunker, Imperial High Command comes up with a plan born not of strategy, but of pure, unfiltered desperation. A final, hopeless gambit.
They called it Operation Tengo, but let's be brutally honest about what this was. It was a special attack, a one-way trip. The fleet was given just enough fuel to get to the American invasion fleet at Okinawa. A return journey? It was never even considered. This wasn't a military operation in any traditional sense. It was a ritual, an act of national sacrifice meant to embody the code of death before dishonor and to prove to the world that Japan's spirit would not break even when facing total annihilation.
And this is the man ordered to lead this doomed fleet, Admiral Ito Seiichi. He was a brilliant, pragmatic commander who, in private, absolutely despised the plan. He saw it for what it was, an incredible waste of good men and precious resources. But he was a loyal officer. He would carry out his orders. He absolutely knew, he was leading over 3,000 sailors to their deaths, and he had already decided he would be joining them.
So at dawn, this formation of 10 ships cuts through the waves, and at its heart, the colossal Yamato. She's this magnificent, terrifying symbol of a bygone era of warfare, and she is the absolute centerpiece of this desperate gamble. She is the embodiment of a nation's pride, sailing directly towards her own oblivion.
It is really hard to wrap your head around the sheer scale of this vessel. Fully loaded, she displaced nearly 72,000 tons. She was, and still is, the largest, heaviest battleship ever built. Her armor plating was so thick it was believed to be completely impervious to any known weapon. Honestly, she was less of a ship and more of a floating fortress of solid steel.
And her main guns! Just incredible. 9 18.1-inch naval guns, the largest ever mounted on a warship. These monsters could hurl an armor-piercing shell, each one weighing as much as a small car, over 26 miles with terrifying accuracy. A single salvo could literally obliterate any lesser ship from clean over the horizon. This was the absolute pinnacle of big gun naval power.
And all that firepower was absolutely central to her design. See, the Yamato wasn't just built to be big, she was engineered to be better, to qualitatively outmatch anything the enemy could throw at her. The whole idea was that she would be powerful enough to take on and defeat two of the enemy's best battleships at the same time. A weapon so powerful it could change the outcome of a battle all by itself.
But even a giant needs protection. Sailing with the Yamato was a small flotilla, the light cruiser Yahagi and 8 destroyers. These 9 ships and their crews, they were the loyal retainers. They were tasked with the impossible mission of screening this Titan on its final voyage, knowing full well they were sailing as sacrifices right alongside her.
As the fleet steams south in those eerie morning hours, there's this brief, almost surreal period of quiet. You can just imagine it. Sailors on deck, sharing cigarettes, maybe saying quiet prayers. The sea is calm. The sky is clear. But every single man on every single one of those ships knows what's coming. They are sailing into a storm they cannot possibly survive. This is the calm before hell.
The tension on board must have been unbearable. First, a lone American scout plane appears, just a silver speck in the clouds, shadowing them, reporting their every move. Then comes the message they've all been dreading. A massive enemy air armada is on its way. The minutes start to tick by like hours. All they can do now is check their weapons, say their goodbyes, and wait for the sky to fall.
Now, to really understand the human side of this, let's focus on one man, an 18-year-old sailor named Kazuhiro Fukumoto. He's on deck, passing the time with his friends. And he is not afraid. How could he be? He is standing on the deck of the invincible Yamato, a steel god, the absolute pride of the empire. In his youthful confidence, he feels completely secure. I mean, what could possibly harm a ship like this?
Then the alarms blare. A distant hum of engines grows and grows into a deafening, soul-shaking roar. The horizon darkens, not with clouds, but with the silhouettes of hundreds upon hundreds of aircraft. The calm is shattered. The execution is about to begin.
Just look at these numbers. This wasn't a battle, it was an annihilation. 10 Japanese ships with absolutely no air cover against almost 400 aircraft from the U.S. Navy's Task Force 58. The sky literally turns black with American planes. For the men on the Yamato, it must have looked like the end of the world.
The first wave hits with unbelievable violence. Hellcat fighters dive down, their 50 caliber machine guns just tearing across the decks, ripping through steel and men alike. They're followed by Avenger torpedo bombers, skimming just above the waves like hungry sharks, dropping their deadly payloads into the water. The sky just erupts in a storm of anti-aircraft fire, black puffs of flak, bright streaks of tracers, all a desperate, futile attempt to ward off the inevitable.
And now we go back to Kazuhiro Fukumoto, because as this massive battle rages outside, his experience shifts from this grand naval combat to a terrifying, personal fight for survival, trapped deep inside the bowels of this dying giant.
Fukumoto races through his damage control station deep inside the ship's hull. The concussions from the bombs and torpedoes, they're no longer distant thunder. They are violent, physical blows that shake the entire vessel, making the steel plates around him groan. He's sent even deeper to check on some damage when his entire world is suddenly turned upside down. A torpedo strikes his section, the lights go out, there's a deafening roar of tearing metal, followed by the terrifying gush of ice-cold seawater. He's in the pitch black, water is rising past his waist, and panic is setting in. And then he sees it. A tiny sliver of light from a buckled hatch above him. It's his only chance.
On the surface, the Yamato is being torn to pieces. She's taken at least 10 torpedo hits and 7 direct bomb strikes. The attacks are relentless, and they're coordinated. You see, all the torpedoes are concentrated on her port side, a deliberate tactic to try and capsize the behemoth. She's listing badly, her rudder is jammed solid, and fires are raging completely out of control. The mightiest battleship in the world is dying.
The end comes with terrifying speed. Captain Kosaku Aruga, realizing the ship is lost, finally gives the order to abandon ship before having himself tied to the ship's binnacle, making sure he goes down with his command. Admiral Ito issues his final command, cancel the operation, then calmly retreats to his cabin to meet his fate. As the giant rolls completely over, its forward magazine, holding hundreds of tons of high explosives for the main guns, detonates in a single, cataclysmic blast. A mushroom cloud rises 6 kilometers into the sky, an explosion so massive it was visible from the Japanese mainland, 100 miles away.
Aboard the Yamato and her escort ships, a total of 3,332 officers and men had sailed into that storm, carrying the hopes and the honor of a fading empire on their shoulders.
Of the nearly 3,000 men aboard the Yamato herself, only 287 would survive the ordeal. And Kazuhiro Fukumoto, that 18-year-old sailor who once felt so invincible, was one of the lucky few. He was pulled from the oily, wreckage-strewn water hours later, a survivor of a steel tomb.
The operation was a total, unmitigated catastrophe. Along with Yamato, the light cruiser Yahagi and 4 destroyers were all sent to the bottom. In the sacrifice, it achieved nothing. Nearly 4,000 Japanese sailors were lost, and they failed to inflict any significant damage on the American fleet. It was a gesture, paid for in thousands of human lives. But historically, this moment represents a profound shift in naval warfare. Think about it. The Yamato, the ultimate expression of battleship power, was destroyed entirely by aircraft without ever firing her main guns at an enemy ship. Her sinking marked the violent, definitive end of the battleship era. Air power was now the undisputed ruler of the waves.
In the end, the Yamato became more than just a warship. She became a legend, a symbol of a nation's pride and also its tragic folly. She's a monument to the unbelievable courage of the men who sailed her and a brutal lesson in the changing nature of war. Hers was a final, defiant roar that signified the end of not just a ship, but of an entire empire and an entire era of human conflict.